Thanks, Tom. We had a number of questions that came in from the audience, and we want to tackle those. And just a quick reminder to everybody that attended today's session. If you attended today's session, be on the lookout for the on-demand version. If you didn't attend today's session, don't worry about it. You'll get access to that on-demand version as well, so you can see what you missed. But we had a number of questions. We're kind of going to answer them in a roundtable format, so let's get after them. This first question is going to the team, and they want to know, in your opinion, can this program help me turn my hospital around? And this is a question from a fellow CFO.
This is Greg. I'll take that one. Absolutely it can. Obviously, something as complicated as a hospital, there's not a single answer to any given problem. But with the case of VestaPay and the payment plans, it has been a major factor in preserving our capital here at Missouri Delta Medical Center. When you consider my patient cash paid to me by patients, is up about $100,000 a month over 2 years ago, you have to ask yourself, absolutely, this is a tool that one needs to use.
I'd like to add something further to that. This is Tom Brecka, and I think what's really crucial is that we're not just enrolling patients into immediate payments or setting them up on sort of standard auto-pay plans. We know that standard auto-pay plans can be applied, but they only work after the fact. That means after the patient's been treated, after the billing to the insurance has been done, after the EOBs are posted and the statement is generated. But at that point, it's too late. And what really helped to make this program successful at Missouri Delta, as well as every other client we're working with, was the fact that we were able to enroll these patients on dynamic balance adjusting auto-pay plans. This is a new type of auto-pay plan that allows for patients' starting balance based on an estimate to be used to set up the plan, and then the plan automatically adjusts to the final balance the patient has some months downstream. So in Greg's case, he's got patients that are enrolled today and were enrolled 3 months and 6 months and 12 and 24 months ago, and they're paying cash out right now, helping to supplant the shortfall that might have happened for a few weeks or a few months back in April and May from the COVID situation. So once again, it really helped to position Missouri Delta with a good cash cushion because of those dynamic balance adjusting auto-pay plans working consistently.
Tom, we've got about 617 pay plans set up as of the end of June, and routinely and every month there's about $28,000 coming in from those payment plans. And that amount grows by about $2,000 a month as new payment plans are added to it. So it's been a great cash flow tool for us.
Yeah, that's really great.
Ray, do you have anything to add, or do you think that covers it for this question?
I believe that the gentlemen have answered the questions sufficiently.
Okay, great. So we've got another question coming in. This is from David. David wants to know, what impact has your VestaPay program had on the community? Do they see your program as a good way of doing business? I'll let the panel of experts take that one.
Having talked to some of the patients, and this is Greg again, that got on those payment plans, you get a genuine sense that they are appreciative. And not only about it, they actually enroll at a very high rate. And I've been amazed at the willingness patients display when they sign up for these plans. I thought it was going to be like pulling teeth back when we had a traditional loan program. It's not. I think the fact that they use their credit cards every day for living expenses translates into an extreme willingness to lay that same card out and pay off their medical debts.
Right.
Yeah, and this is Ray Chase. As the former Vice President of Revenue Cycle for Catholic Health Initiatives, or CHI, one of the things that has always impressed me of VestaCare is that we've finally given the patient a way to actually budget his health care payment. Before, traditionally, we used to kind of force the patient into some sort of payment arrangement with the hospital. But again, what has amazed me is that VestaPay has changed that dynamic overall.
And we see a very positive set of results similarly at our other hospital locations as well. It really doesn't make a difference whether we're talking about an urban metropolitan hospital or a rural farming community hospital. They all have different variations, but the results have been exceptional in every case. And I think that's the most impressive thing about the program.
We got a question coming in from Anthony. Anthony wants to know, could you or would you say that the payments you receive from VestaPay auto-pay plans soften the impact of lost revenues during the peak of the COVID shutdown?
I'll take the lead on this just for a minute, and then Greg can kind of fill it in. Again, one of the critical points here is it's not just about collecting cash at time of service. Hospital staff do a pretty good job of estimating what a patient's copay and out-of-pocket is going to be, and they try to collect that, and that's great. And nobody should ever say that's not worthwhile or shouldn't be pursued. But what's really crucial is that cash today represents about 10 to 15% of the typical patient revenue a hospital secures from a patient. The other 85% of the revenue is lost. And the only way to protect and secure that remaining 85% is by enrolling patients in dynamic balance adjusting auto-pay plans today at time of service when you don't know what they owe. So the critical factor here is you enroll them on these auto-pay plans, these dynamic balance adjusting auto-pay plans. Today, you secure not just the estimate that they're going to owe tomorrow, the exact final amount, because when the final balance is determined, if it happens to be $500 more, $1,000 more, $10,000 more, or happens to be less, the auto-pay plan, the dynamic balance adjusting auto-pay plan, will automatically adjust to the exact amount, changing the term of the payment plan to match the final balance. That secures significant revenue. And if you look at the numbers which were shown at the end of the presentation for Missouri Delta, during that April timeframe, data service cash dropped off a bit, but the payment plan cash actually increased and continued unabated. And that's very important.
In the 4 months since this crisis all started, I've taken in well over $100,000, and it was money that came to us without lifting a finger. The payment plans were set up, patients made their payments, we had a payment source recorded in the patient's account. That meant that energy that normally would have been put towards collecting that money can go to more important tasks. So it's been a very convenient luxury to have in our arsenal.
And that $100,000 you mentioned was just on the auto-pay plan portion, and it didn't count the payments that were being captured data service as well.
Correct. Just the cash that came in by itself without any effort.
Okay, we've got one more question that we're going to tackle for right now. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to send them in. We're only going to spend a few more minutes. We might tackle two more questions, but this one's coming from Shelby. Shelby wants to know, gentlemen, do you think having a system like VestaPay can help improve your bottom line? That sounds like something Greg might want to tackle right up front.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, history has shown us that these pay plans pay out at approximately 80% rate. And that's versus, at my hospital, 13% that is recovered from monies owed by the patient. So when I do my bad debt testing and my uncollectible accounts work, I reserve the self-pay portion of these payment plans at only 40% versus the 80% to 85% that I normally do for a self-pay account without a plan. So there's an instant effect on income statement from just the reserve aspect. But eventually, as time goes, we're going to collect more money and prove those reserve estimates correct. So in my case, I think I am at about a $450,000 recovery that I would not have had without the payment plans. And that's this year through 8 months.
Through the introduction of the PERK system, that program has gotten even more effective for Missouri Delta. Fewer and fewer of the patients are having to have a direct conversation with the staff about their balances. Most importantly, the PERK system allows the patient to self-enroll, to self-pay, and self-enroll in the dynamic balance adjusting auto-pay plans. And we thought that might be all modestly accepted when it was first introduced, but what really became apparent was that patients like the discretion, the discreteness of the process. That means they don't have to have a conversation with a person about their balances. So any potential concern about fear or shame that they might have in talking to a person about an outstanding balance goes away, and they act on it, and they set up a plan for themselves. And, of course, it was very fast, a couple of minutes to do so, way faster than going to a portal. So the bottom line is this way of working with patients has not only increased the staff efficiency, meaning they can work on the exceptions rather than the rule, but also it's increased the number of patients who are self-enrolling and the revenue coming from electronic enrollments by the patient, which is really incredible from what we've seen.
Guys, let's take one more. We got one that came in from Linda, and I think it's a question that, Greg, you can speak to, obviously, having utilized the solution as much as you have, and Tom, understanding how people that are using it across the board feel. This is coming, again, Greg, let's start with you. How comfortable do you feel your staff is, Greg, with using VestaPay?
They have become very comfortable. It was a new and unique activity for them at first, so they were a little hesitant. But as we got it down and began to perform better, their confidence grew because they saw a genuine appreciation from the patients having this as an option to pay off their account. Small monthly payment that is set up within the comfort zone of the patient. It happens automatically. It just greases the chute so much more, and our employees have come to very much appreciate that.
One of the things, too, about the payment plan, there's communication between the system and the patients on all payments. So 10 days before the patient's next scheduled payment is going to process, they're given an advisory text message or email that this is happening. And this helps the patients to better anticipate when their payments are coming through. It also works the same way for confirming the payment when it's been processed. So they get a nice thank you note from the hospital. We appreciate your payment today. If there's a problem with the payment, the system will automatically notify the patient that there's a breach or some type of problem and set up the connection for them to fix it right then, right there. And this is also supported through the whole PERC system with the mobile chatbot. So that chatbot is actually interacting with patients to help them fix problems with their payment plan when they do occur. So not only did Greg mention we've got about 85% initial success rate with the auto pay plans, but the fallout is also auto-corrected as well in a very large percentage of the case. Ray, do you want to add any further comments?
Not really. You guys got it covered pretty well.
All right, guys, we got another question coming in from Angela. Angela wants to know, how is your team able to work with clinical staff in deploying VestaPay, not perks, in the ED?
Well, we obviously included them in planning and the rollout stage. But since we just capture the basic demographic information and then the clinicians take over, it really doesn't have any impact on the clinical staff.
Great. Anything we're going to add to that, Tom or Ray, on your side?
Well, just a quick point in that is that Greg's correct. By bringing the staff into the process up front, they were party to the solution, and that it helped everybody understand what the value of the program was and how it's going to help them both financially and working with the patients. Well, the staff were very much on board, both clinical and registration and financial counselors.
I will add that we are discussing the possibility of putting some clinical screening questions in the PERC system, which could actually speed the patient being matched up with the appropriate clinician.
Awesome. We've got one that's coming in from David. David wants to know, what is the key to making a program like VestaPay work?
In my opinion, the buy-in and the leadership of our patient access director was the key and turned out to be the most valuable piece we had. She's very much a believer in the program. More importantly, she holds her staff underneath her accountable. I mean, there's ways to check to see if they are using the program, see if they're promoting the program. VestaPay has some excellent reporting along those lines. You can see each day's activity and figure out if an employee is believing in the program or if an employee is avoiding the program.
And I may just want to add to that, Greg, that the training that was provided as well was very important to help the staff not just understand the tool and how to functionally use it, but how to have a conversation with the patients about money and approach it in a positive way and a comfortable way, reflecting the patient's concerns at the same time of trying to provide a good solution for them. And by working with those staff that were less comfortable having that financial conversation, helping them build confidence, helping them have some practice, even some chair-side assistance, all that led to those staff becoming more and more effective in time. But the bottom line, as Greg mentioned, was having an accountability for the team, managers that work with the team members, checking, making sure they're doing the job, and engaging every single patient.
One other thing that really helped, it's kind of a minor thing, but it bought the staff in as much as anything else that we did. VestaPay is very agile, and if we see something we'd like different, a different button added or a button taken away or a new question, VestaPay had it implemented usually in a matter of days. And the staff really came to appreciate that, and it showed them that people do care that their job runs smoothly.
Great. So we've got one. Greg, I believe this is for you, and this is coming from Sam. Sam wants to know, you said earlier that you had been able to change how you were setting your reserves against the payment plans. Can you go into a little bit more depth about this and why this helps you so much?
Yeah, VestaPay was able to give me some historical data from their client base that showed the payment plans were paying out about 80%. So if you had $100,000 in payment plans, you could count on collecting 80,000. So that's only a 20% bad debt ratio. Right now, my bad debt ratio is about 87%, looking at historical numbers. So on self-pay accounts, I've been reserving 87%. But since we've got documented history of the auto pay plans paying at a much higher rate, I've reduced that reserve percentage from 87% down to 40%. So I'm still conservative because I think the plans will pay more than that, but it was a 47% pickup on the accounts receivable related to self-pay patients.
And that helps greatly when you're looking at trying to provide additional financing for the hospital and managing your profitability projections against actual. So all these functions very important as surrounding the way the payment plan performs. And it's largely due as well to the fact that we're engaging with the patient through active communications to make sure they're staying current with their payment methods. If a problem occurs, it's identified right away so that the patient can correct it. And there's a very high correction rate when the problems occur. And problems occur in the normal course of business. Balance limitations, credit cards expire, so forth. It's the action to maintain and clean up those issues promptly that results in the high success rate.
Let me put some numbers to it. I mentioned earlier, I think that I've got about $1 million in payment plans after 21 months. So I'm reserving for bad debts at 47% less than I did previously to VestaPay. So that's $470,000 in reduced bad debt that drops straight to the bottom line from the benefit of this program.
Great. So we've got another question. Michael wants to know, he said our executive team has put a hold on looking at or introducing new products, programs, or vendors. Would you say we should be looking at VestaPay? If yes, why? What will it do for me personally? Greg, that's for you.
Well, I would be cautious about ever saying the revenue cycle is put on hold or not subject to change. In my experience in a lot of the for-profits, if we had layoffs or hiring freezes, it never applied to the revenue cycle. So I think absolutely you should be looking at VestaPay. And the reason being is it's going to accelerate your cash. Tom mentioned earlier the payment desert where you're not getting any payments from the patient until usually 3 to 6 months after the date of service. The bill's got to go in, the EOB's got to come back, and then you got to start tackling the patient. So VestaPay greatly accelerates that or eliminates it on those people that sign up for payment plans.
Right. So we've got another one. This is for you. This is for, I'm not sure who this is for, but might be for you, Greg. It's coming from April. We just don't have time to introduce something new. We don't have the bandwidth. Can you add a little bit more to that, Greg? Do you believe the benefits of VestaPay outweigh the trouble of introducing something new?
Yeah, there's not a big staff commitment of time in bringing in VestaPay. VestaPay's got an excellent support group, and they're always a phone call away, no holds, no voicemail messaging. You get a real person, and they act, as I said earlier, they act very, very quickly. So I would not be worried about the bandwidth required to implement the program. IT, it's a minor demand on their role as well. The staff learning the software and getting comfortable with it's your biggest commitment. And you are going to get what you pay for in that department. If you shortcut the education and the learning curve, you're probably not going to be happy with your results.
And just to add another comment on this is Tom again. VestaPay system does involve a fair amount of effort to set up contracts and load the rate tables and so forth. VestaCare carries the bulk of that effort on behalf of a client. We need the support to get access to the data and the files and so forth, but we really carry the heavy lifting there. With the Perks program, particularly the Perks Gold, which is the collections and bad debt prevention solution, we need a couple of data files. They can be Excel format or HL7, and that's it. And there is no staff involvement here because it's an automated chatbot running the process directly with patients. If a patient needs to call and talk about their account, your current staff already is trained how to handle that. So it's very light touch. You can be operational in days, generating improved cash flow, and the staff work in the normal course. There's no disruption. There's no change in workflow. There's no retraining required whatsoever.
Literally, as we were about to ship, about 9,000 accounts off to our bad debt vendor, Tom said, hey, give me a shot at those. We got this new perks program. I said, sure. And that was it. The VestaPay took it from there. The chatbots launched on their own. And we developed about over 100 payment plans from that first batch in just a matter of days with no effort from our staff.
That's awesome.
And I think the financials were quite impressive as well in that one, okay, Greg?
Yes, if I'm recalling, we had close to $150,000 in payments secured.
That's right.
Very nice. We got another one. This is coming from Allison. What did it cost you to introduce VestaPay's perks?
So I'll take that question. This is Tom. The perks program is introduced basically at no implementation costs. We amortize that into the success fee, which is basically saying that we don't get paid unless perks generates improved results. So the proposal we set up with Greg and Missouri Delta was we'll take care of the cost of loading the data, getting the process set up, and the connectivity and so forth. So he doesn't have to pay that out of pocket. And then he pays us a percentage of what we help him secure. And so it was very fast, very easy for him to get this set up and improved, to go operational. Literally, we're 2 weeks or so with the first iteration with the perk system. Of course, we had some things we had to do on our side. Those things are all done, so the next clients are going up in literally days. And we don't have an implementation fee, so if you're in budget lockdown at this point in time, that's not a factor. You should still be able to start securing that most important revenue from patients. And this doesn't conflict with other revenue capture processes. If you're in early out or you've done some other front-end steps to try to capture a payment and you haven't succeeded, those accounts that you haven't succeeded, if you're about to send them to collections or to bad debt, send them to us and we'll prevent them from going to collections and going to bad debt.
And I'll say I'm happy to pay VestaPay that commission for the amounts they collect because, as I mentioned earlier, historically we collected about 13% on self-pay obligations. Now I'm moving that account into a bucket that I'm collecting 80% on. So I've got a lot of wiggle room in there to pay a commission when you think of 80% versus 13%.
We're going to take one more question, and then we're gonna wrap up. And again, this is all available on demand, so be on the lookout for the on-demand version. This last question is coming from Ronnie, and this is for you, Greg. How would you summarize the value of introducing perks to your organization?
Well, first and foremost, it brings in cash that we had not seen in previous years. I recently did an analysis beginning in 2015, analyzed patient cash received each year, and we've improved just short of $100,000 a month in getting patients to pay cash. A lot of that success is to perks, but something else about perks and VestaPay is it brings a laser-like focus on the patient's obligation with my staff members. They now know that there's going to be a patient amount owed. Let's get to work on fixing it. So what we never even talked about or contemplated that was a benefit from the program was time of service cash went up dramatically. It almost doubled or did double. And that was because we had the patient and staff both focused on satisfying this patient's obligation. And the benefits accrued everywhere in the transaction.
One other thing too, just real quick, the way that VestaPay introduces its payment plans under this new structure called a dynamic balance adjusting auto pay plan, it allows the staff to secure with the patient their full obligation, not just what they have identified and estimated for today, not just the copay and deductible, but their co-insurance and any other unbilled charges all get captured. Even though you don't know what they are, they get captured and secured on these dynamic balance adjusting auto pay plans at the time of visit. This is most important because once you've got them enrolled, the patients enrolled on these dynamic balance adjusting auto pay plans, then downstream as you go through the insurance billing and adjudication and posting cycle, whatever changes occur to that patient's account automatically are folded onto that same auto pay plan, either by extending or shortening the duration of the plan to match the final exact amount that the patient's going to owe. This is where Greg really knocked the ball out of the park with his team, because not only did they see significant increases in cash each month, on the order of over $100,000 to $150,000 new cash, heading towards $200,000, but their auto pay plan has allowed them to capture revenue that they would otherwise have to go chase the patient to secure. All captured up front. No additional work on the part of his staff. And that's showing up now in the repeating payments coming in from the payment plans, not just the time of service cash.
I think last I looked, my existing plan payments are at $32,000 a month each month, and that happens without effort from my staff. It happens through the auto pay plan.
Going through the COVID period with a lot of shutdown, a lot of foregoing of actions with patients, a lot of hospitals saw a significant drop-off in cash. Missouri Delta had some buffering of that because the auto pay plans were consistently paying through that time frame.
Okay, so that's all the questions that we're going to take. If we didn't get to any of your questions, Tom and the team at Best to Pay can certainly reach out to you offline, and Greg can as well. Be sure to be on the lookout for the on-demand version of this, which will be available very shortly within the next 24 hours or so you can reinforce what you learned or see what you missed. You'll also be getting some messaging on upcoming Best to Care and Best to Pay webinars for the rest of the year. But with that being said, I'm going to wrap up. My name again is Jason Stegent. I want to thank everybody for attending today's session, and to the Best to Pay team and Greg, fantastic job. Hope we can do it again soon.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Greg.